O'Reilly.
Check engine, ABS, or maintenance light on? Take the guesswork out of your warning lights with O'Reilly Veriscan. The service is free and provides a report with solutions verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we could recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
And what's going on, Los Angeles, Bruin Nation, LAFB fam, your dynamic duo, the Thriller and Madman, back together again for all of your UCLA football needs. And it's a special time of the year. It's Victory Bell week. It's rivalry week. So much to unpack. This week is always such a delight and such a special time of the year in the ethos of UCLA sports. The Thriller and I got your back on all kinds of terrific content here. Super excited about the show. But first and foremost, my brother from another mother, it is Thanksgiving week, brother. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your beautiful family. I know you're getting ready for a departure to the Midwest. And
yes,
just how's Thanksgiving prep going, and what are you most looking forward to, this weekend, and what are you most thankful for?
Yeah, man, most thankful for doing this wonderful show with you and just covering the Bruins and doing it to the best of our ability, man. It's a tough year for the football program, but it's rivalry week, man. You got to throw everything out during this week, especially after USC's season kind of ended here. But, man, just really pumped. I think, Thanksgiving's a great time to kind of reconnect with your family. I haven't seen my parents in quite a while, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And catch some football and, the Victory Bell game on top of it. So just a lot of good stuff going on in the hearts of UCLA fans, and hopefully everything moving forward.
Absolutely, indeed, Thriller. And so obviously the bulk of this conversation is going to be about the rivalry like no other. Two schools separated 12 miles apart, sharing a city, sharing a metropolitan, house divided, families divided, all of that great stuff. But Bruins come into this game, Thriller, obviously 3-8, very disheartening performance over the weekend. Saturday night, you and I obviously were glued to it and, we're messaging back and forth. Really tough pill to swallow there, 48-14 at the hands of the Washington Huskies. You and I both said our head is telling us one thing, our hearts are telling us another thing, and we sort of saw this coming.
Our head was right.
Yeah. Thriller, I don't know if I saw a 34-point loss coming, though. This was a really tough one to watch. It just felt like the team could never really get out of the starting gates, turnover after turnover. And I thought it was very symbolic there, Thriller. The turning point for me in the game was with about 2.5 minutes or so left in the first half. Bruins, really struggling for most of that half, but find a way where they're still kind of in it at 13-0 with a couple of red zone stops. Drive stalls out past the 50-yard line. You line up for that field goal with Bagani, and you're thinking, hey, you hit this field goal 13-3. If you can get it to the half 13-3, you get the ball at the start of the second half. Like, this is still a game. You're still in it. And the Bruins proceed to go fake field goal there. And Bagani, it felt like made a business decision, Thriller, not going for that ball. And the Huskies sort of pick it up and scoop and score and made it 20-0. And it just felt like the floodgates opened at that point. And just, there was just no path to victory there. And I thought it was symbolic because, Thriller, so much of that 3-game winning streak was also epitomized by special teams trick plays. If you recall, the onside kick against Penn State, and then obviously the fake punt against Michigan State, and so many of those characteristics epitomize that win streak. But it felt like Lady Luck has sort of run out on the Bruins this season. That 4-game losing streak to start, then obviously the magic of that Penn State upset that we will always have. And it really felt like the momentum from that Penn State game carried over to Michigan State, and you got 2 wins out of it. And then it led us to a third win. But truth be told, and you and I talked about this so much, that was a tough performance against Maryland. We gutted it out in the last 4 or 5 minutes. So you felt like the magic was starting to run out against Maryland. I really believed it was a culture type of game, and we won because of our confidence and the chemistry and the cohesiveness. But in terms of quality of play, it felt like, the Cinderella run was sort of ending at Maryland. And then sure enough, between the Indiana game, the Ohio State game, that Nebraska game, and now Washington, it just looks so much similar to the team that started the season, particularly 0-3. You sort of are who your roster is, and it feels like that magical run has come to an end, and they've just sort of converged to what they were at the start of the season. Just quickly, Thriller, your thoughts about the game against Washington before we get into Victory Bell.
Yeah, man, incredibly ugly. This team was so good at running the football in their 3 wins this season, man. And then you look at what they did on Saturday night, 22 carries for 57 yards. That's 2.6 yards a carry. I mean, Jalen Berger led all rushers for UCLA with 26 yards. Nico gets hurt. The yardage discrepancy is about as big as you'll see. It felt like we were like an FCS team coming to play Washington. It was that bad. Washington outgained us 426 yards to 207. And, listen, you guys, Bob Chesney is my number one choice, but I had a lot of people in the comments saying Jed Fish isn't a good coach. All this guy does is rise to the occasion and elevates programs and just beat the piss out of UCLA this past weekend. I hate to say it, but Fish is a great coach, man, and he's got a chance to go and beat Oregon this weekend, maybe get to 9-3 in his second year after a complete rebuild off the talent that Washington lost off that national championship run. So Jed Fish, we've done this every year. We've done the podcast, man. Jed Fish comes to us, beats us in ways that just make us, frustrated, angry, upset, however you want to say it. Fish is that type of guy. But yeah, it was just a tough watch, man. Nico is, run for his life. He got hurt again. We don't even know if he's going to be in the game this coming weekend. Thoughts and prayers out to our guy, Nico. But it's just the wheels have fallen off. The luck has run out, as you've like to said. Maybe we can put a very happy bow on this season, with a win against a crosstown rival. But, I think, the fan base has rightfully pivoted their focus to if we can land Bob Chesney or not. And I think it's a very, very smart tactic by the fan base because it's been a rough year, to say the least.
No question about it, Thriller. So let's segue into the Victory Bell game, because I know we've got some thoughts about the coaching that we'll wrap up with as well. It's the inverse is taking place. 8-3 USC versus 3-8 UCLA. Thriller, very interesting game for me because I think both teams come in stumbling in, and that's sort of a rarity in this rivalry. You usually have one team that's on a high, at least, if not both. Last year felt a little bit like that with both teams kind of stumbling in, and I think we have a similar situation here. You mentioned it about UCLA 3-8. We're just trying to finish the season strong here and close out this season. And the eyes are, of course, on who's the coach going to be and what's the future direction of this program going to look like. There's uncertainty about the coaching staff. There's uncertainty about the home stadium. There's uncertainty about the financial investment. There's uncertainty about the commitment. There's just sort of uncertainty everywhere with UCLA football coming into this game. But on the flip side, SC comes in, feels like physically and emotionally beaten up and exhausted as well. They had a very tough outing, a competitive game, but losing to Oregon by 15 drops the Trojans to 8-3, effectively eliminates them from the college football playoff. And that's always a big thud when you're an 18 to 22-year-old kid. In this day and age of college football, gone are the days of those traditional rivalries in bowl games. Gone are the days of the Rose Bowl in terms of Pac-10, Big Ten, or Pac-12, Big Ten. Gone are the days of those Cotton Bowl matchups and those Orange Bowl matchups. And now it's all about, can you make the 12-team playoff or not? Because the reality of the situation is, if you don't, the bowl game is a game where the vast majority of players sit out. Certainly your best players are going to sit out if they have NFL aspirations. I mean, just think a couple of years ago, there was that BCS game, Thriller, between Georgia and Florida State. Florida State had 40 guys sit out. And that was a 65-7 type of game, 70-7 type of game. So SC kind of comes in knowing that their season is effectively over. This is sort of a pride game on both sides. And Thriller, I think it's going to be very interesting because Nico Iamaleava's health to me is the critical element here.
Yeah.
He's got the neck spasms after, getting banged up against Washington. You wonder if he's going to play in this game. I have to be honest with you. If I was his father, if I was his, sort of mentor, if I was an inner circle individual in the Iamaleava family, I would encourage him to sit out because I don't know if there's any sort of upside that you get in this particular game, especially as you're going to be assessing your options in the offseason in terms of different teams and different packages and whatnot, because you played your heart out. You just, didn't have enough in terms of supporting cast. But it's so interesting to me, Thriller, because if Nico plays this game, it actually brings in a wrinkle and an element that I'm not sure SC has seen before this year. SC has not played a dual threat quarterback yet this season. And so for a team, particularly defensively with SC, where they have struggled at times with gap integrity, with gap contain, with being able to follow through on their blocks, with every individual defensively kind of doing their job and staying disciplined, the fact that they've never played a dual threat quarterback this year was almost the perfect recipe to put an overly eager defense against a dual threat quarterback. The other element that I think is very interesting is this is SC's third loss. After SC's first two losses, they had bye weeks. This is the first time all season SC is going to play a game immediately after a loss. And so you actually don't know what the response is going to be because it's sort of a first-time situation. And then third, when you're sort of dealing with the emotion of the letdown of losing to Oregon and then having to sort of play UCLA with no college football playoff on the line, all of these things are sort of advantage UCLA. A low SC emotionally, not having played a dual threat quarterback and not having played, Thriller, a quarterback anywhere near the talent of Nico Iamaleava. I would argue that the best quarterback that SC played this year was Luke Altmaier of Illinois. Fine quarterback, great quarterback.
Dante Moore's got to be in there. Dante Moore
and Dante Moore now, absolutely, with Dante Moore. But think about the guys they didn't play. When you think about Mendoza, when you think about Sayin, when you think about Damon Williams, so there's a bunch of very dynamic, explosive guys that they didn't play. For as good as Dante is, he's not really a dual threat, and for as good as Altmaier is, there's a little bit of a ceiling in terms of, I think, his explosiveness. But when you think about, particularly a Mendoza and a Damon Williams, SC hasn't really seen an athlete of the like of Nico Iamaleava. And so if Nico plays, coupled with sort of that emotional element, there's a world here where this is a game. And particularly when you throw everything out with the rivalry, anything can potentially happen. But on the flip side for UCLA, it just feels like both offensive and defensive lines have just really, really regressed. And so it scares me, Thriller, for this defensive line and this defense to go up against that USC offense, because for all the struggles SC has had defensively from time to time this season, they arguably have the best wide receiver duo in the country. I mean, it's Jeremiah Smith and Tate, and then it's Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane, and they got Tanook Hines. And so between who they have at tight end in terms of McCree and Lyons, between their running back room, which is down to Miller and Brian Jackson now, even with all the injuries, there's just so many weapons there. You wonder how UCLA defensively is going to be able to hold up in this game. So lots to unpack there, Thriller, but your thoughts going into this Victory Bell week?
Yeah, I think it's a battle of the injured players and who's going to be able to step up, because Nico, it's a coin flip if he's going to play or not. USC way more than I do. I just know he missed last game. Is Bishop Fitzgerald out for this game?
It looks that way. Bishop Fitzgerald, Kamari Ramsey, Elijah Page. I mean, there's a lot that SC is potentially missing. They're very banged up. I mean, physically and emotionally, Thriller. And so, if you're in the right frame of mind and if you've got a healthy Nico, you've got a puncher's chance here.
Yeah, because Bishop is the highest graded safety in all of college football via PFF this year. This guy's been a stud. 5 interceptions. He's been outstanding. But it's going to be a battle, a war of attrition, if you will, at the end of the season with two teams that are just kind of crawling to the finish line, if you will, after some gut-wrenching losses. I think if Nico is able to strap it up one more time, and I know his future is very uncertain with the Bruins, UCLA fans just got to tip their cap and just give that guy a huge round of applause because he's been through more than just about any college football player has been through this year. When you talk about the scrutiny of him leaving Tennessee, the start that he had, the high of that 3-game win streak when it felt like, hey, man, we can get to a bowl game. Maybe Nico comes back. Maybe Jerry New and, Tim Skipper, our coaches moving forward. And then just kind of come back down to earth. He's been through so much. So if he's able to go out there and play one more time in the blue and gold, I just banged up, injured. I just have so much respect for what he's been able to do. So like you said, they haven't played a quarterback with that skill set that Nico possesses. So if we get a healthy-ish Nico out there, I said the same thing last week against Washington. It didn't go our way, but Nico's got the talent to make plays. And I just want to see it one more time, maybe, especially in the biggest game of the year for our UCLA Bruins. So that would be a big one for me. I am worried about the line play. The line play has clearly regressed from a run blocking standpoint, from a pass blocking standpoint. Our biggest concern coming into the year was the pass rush. It's like, who's going to step up? We had to move Femi Oladeji out of edge last year just to even fortify that unit. So, I mean, with him gone and just a bunch of guys that are, D1 players, but just not the cream of the crop when it comes to that area, it's been incredibly difficult to generate a pass rush on the quarterback, which has made it tough for the whole defense to function. I don't like that Roderick Pleasant is out for this game. I think that's going to really hurt the secondary. He was one of the guys that I think was playing at a very high level. And we can criticize Lincoln Riley all we want. His offense is their top 10 in total offense. They're top 10 in yards per play. They're 7th in passing offense. I think he's done an incredible job with a quarterback that I feel like is just kind of average in Jaden Iamaleava. I think he has maximized what Jaden Iamaleava is. But I will pivot this back. If USC's season is done, and, Lincoln was snapping at reporters in the post. He was pissed to lose that game. I think he was like, this is the dumbest question someone has asked me. He kind of shot that back. If Lincoln loses this game, knowing what we know now, and I know he's got the number 1 recruiting class, I think it's warrant of a fire at this point because it's been 4 or 5 years. We haven't seen it. If you lose to this current version of UCLA, and, Ben Bolch mentioned in his piece today, man, John Barnes, these games exist for UCLA, but they just kind of pull it out of their ass, no pun intended. I mean, Barnes was a walk-on quarterback, 3rd string that we had to put into that game, led us to a victory against USC. I can't completely rule it out. And it's the head and the heart thing again. We're going to be doing the same thing we did last week. But if UCLA can just generate some magic, these rivalry games are magic. You could pull something out that you didn't think you knew you had because the energy and the intensity of sport is so high. I think Lincoln has got to be on a first-class jet somewhere else. Maybe taking that Arkansas job, maybe taking, the Oklahoma State job, something like that. But if you lose this UCLA team, I think it's over for Lincoln. What do you think about that?
Well, Thriller, I mean, there's so much there, and it's such a great point. I will say this. I think the perception of USC season by a vast majority of the fan base is they're not happy, but the sky isn't falling either. It's sort of a, 8-3, 9-3 for this schedule. It's the most James Franklin year you could have at USC. It's like you won all the little games in the middle, the mediocre games, lost all the big games, and so it's like, look, it's the sky isn't falling, but it wasn't a great year. And so you've got a fan base that's sort of semi-agitated. They're not furious. They're not thrilled. They're semi-agitated. I will tell you, a loss to UCLA in the Coliseum, this UCLA sends that agitation to rage. And from agitation to rage, and the entire perception of the USC season completely changes if USC doesn't win this game. This season will be looked at as a marketable failure, as a catastrophe. I mean, it's wild how one game can swing it. But with this schedule, and particularly this UCLA team, if SC finishes 8-4, this will be looked at as an absolute train wreck of a season. And so in that regard, all the pressure is on USC. And number two, it would force USC to have to make some very difficult choices in the offseason. Look, SC has an interim president. They don't want to make a change with Lincoln Riley with an interim president. And on top of that, you have that Lincoln Riley massive contract where the buyout is still so significant. And SC is sort of also navigating this NIL world. It's not like it's unlimited funds back there the way it is with Phil Knight and Oregon, the way it is with some of these Texas schools and the oil money. They have to sort of manage their funds as well, much in the way most of college football does. So you put USC in a very, very uncomfortable situation if UCLA is able to pull off this upset. And Thriller, like you said, it's happened before. John Barnes and the mystique of that game coming off the bench and upsetting USC. Let's not forget our good friend Pat Cowan, the 13-9 game against SC, number 2 in 06, where, you sort of come off the mat and pull off a shocker. And so that's the thing with this rivalry, and that's the thing with college football, Thriller. It's what we said after Penn State. When you think you know, that's when you don't know. And think about the parallels as well between this USC team and the Penn State team at that time, right? It's coming off a tough loss to Oregon. You're emotionally down. You got to play UCLA. UCLA team that's lost 4 straight games. Remember, it was 4 straight games to start the season against Penn State. 4 straight games right now. You're not necessarily going to take this team all that seriously the way Penn State did. And UCLA has an inspiring performance. Back then, it was the instantiation of Jerry Neuheisel as the offensive coordinator. I think this game is perhaps the last game of Jerry Neuheisel as the offensive coordinator at UCLA. The last game for Tim Skipper. The last game for Coyle. The last game for Nico. And maybe you say, you know what? We're just going to pull out all the stops. It's going to be all the trick plays. We're going to leave nothing to hang out. And you just kind of cut it loose and let it rip. The most dangerous opponent, Thriller, in any circumstance, whether it's sports, whether it's life, any sort of competition, is the opponent that has nothing to lose, right?
Exactly.
That's the most dangerous opponent. And in that regard, UCLA is such a dangerous opponent because they have nothing to lose. There's no pressure. There's no expectation. Think about this, Thriller, for historical context. That famous 13-9 game in 06, SC was a 10.5-point favorite in that game as the number 2 team in the country in the Rose Bowl. Saturday in the Coliseum, SC is a 20.5-point favorite. It is double. The line is double. So UCLA has nothing to lose on Saturday. SC has all the pressure on them, and you just go back and you cut it loose. Can these 2 lines, Thriller, can they hold up just enough? I mean, it comes down to that. You talked about Nico and the guts. I mean, Matt Rule said it after that Nebraska game. I can't believe he finished the game. I was really expecting him to get knocked out. With this offensive line, Thriller, think about this. We got 1 game left in the season. Nico Iamaleava is UCLA's leading rusher on the season by 183 yards. And on top of that, Thriller, he's missed a game and a half. Yeah. And he's still the leading rusher by 183 yards. Oof. And we were talking about Javion Thomas at Cal. Did Javion Thomas forget how to run the ball? No, of course not. Did Berger forget how to run? Did Woods forget how to run? I mean, from all his years at Idaho? No, I mean, it's the line. The line just hasn't been a credible power for Big Ten offensive line. It's just the state of affairs. And then on the flip side, on the defensive side, it hasn't been a credible line on the defensive side either with the lack of the pass rush. So if this line, both lines, Thriller, can just be average, can you make Iamaleava somewhat uncomfortable at some point? And you're going to need a little bit of help. If Iamaleava got a little turnover prone against Oregon, if that carries over and he's got 2 turnovers, maybe 3 turnovers, I think 3 is that number. If Iamaleava gets a little sloppy with the ball, has 3 turnovers, and UCLA kind of just cuts it loose and lets it rip, anything can happen on these kinds of games in terms of the rivalry. Thriller, your thoughts?
Yeah, I completely agree. And Skipper was so good at drawing up those momentum changing play. It didn't work against Washington. The special teams, play on that we talked about at the beginning. But if you could get a couple of those momentum swings where it's like 4th and 5, it's a fake punt, we pick up a first down, something to kind of keep everyone on their toes a little bit, kind of shock a little bit out of the USC defense. I think it's totally plausible. And then another storyline, how bad do we want to stick it to DeAnton Lynn in this game? The guy that left the crosstown team. This was a guy that people were, openly saying, and we wanted him as a head coach. I watched the Oregon game. I watched a couple other games. We don't want any part of that guy. I'd like to stick it to him one more time if we can. UCLA has a chance to do something. And I think you mentioned a really good point. Jerry Neuheisel bleeds blue and gold on the inside. This may be the last game in his immediate future, but you're telling me as an offensive coordinator, a guy that bleeds blue and gold is not going to scheme up the game of his life for this team this weekend? I think Jerry is going to have a lot of tricks up his sleeve. I hope Skipper is rallying the troops as we speak right now. I hope Coyle is, maybe drawing up some corner blitzes, some way to get to Iamaleava if the front four can't do it. And UCLA can at least just put up a fight. I think if this is a close game, we're ecstatic just because we rose to the occasion and made some plays. If we somehow come out of here with a win, my God, I think we're going to go to Vegas on Saturday night if something like that
100%.
happens.
100%.
Yeah.
And we're going to be playing roulette the whole night and looking to win the jackpot if that were to happen, Thriller.
Yeah.
You and I are such movie guys, right? We love the movies. Doesn't this game, to me, remind you of The Replacements with Keanu Reeves? When they find out that, the main guys have crossed the picket line, this is going to be Keanu's last game. He's been told he's done. And, Gene Hackman's kind of afraid to sort of tell him that they got to move in a different direction. All these other players know that this is it. And the way they played that second half, and they just sort of let it loose and said, no matter what happens in our lives from here on out, we're always going to remember this moment, this season, and this game. And I think it's going to be a very similar sentiment for UCLA, for Jerry, for Tim, for Coyle, for Nico, and for this whole team of saying, look, 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now, if we were able to somehow shock the world and win this game, no one will remember our record. They will just remember how unlikely it was for us to be able to win this game. And so in sports, the thing you're always chasing is immortality, right, Thriller? And immortality can come through championships. It can come through great moments. It can come through unbelievable statistics, or it can come through the most likely of upsets that just we're still talking about the John Barnes game 35 years later. Could this be another moment that we talk about for 35 years to come? And that's the beauty and that's the romanticism of this rivalry in a sport. So, Thriller,
we need Nico to be Shane Falco this weekend.
We need Nico, Shane Falco. We need Shane Iamaleava. Okay, that's what we need and to be able to sort of pull off perhaps the greatest upset in the history of the USC-UCLA rivalry. USC a full 3-touchdown favorite in this particular game. Thriller, man, oh man. I know you and I are going to be glued to it, but before we sign off, anything you're seeing post-victory bell that you're sort of got your eye on? Because I know there's always one eye and one ear and one heart in terms of who the next coach is going to be, who's the next face of this program. Any thoughts before we close on the future?
Yeah, we need to make a full court press pitch for Bob Chesney. And, that comes from the fan base too. He wants to know what type of fans are going to show up and support him. So guys, be loud, be proud, be Bruins, as we always say. But let's wear out the red carpet for our guy, Bob Chesney right now, because if we can somehow land him, and I think we all believe this guy is the guy. This guy is the guy that can take us back to where we believe UCLA football should be in our heart of hearts. If you can get Bob Chesney and you can rally some momentum, that's how a fire starts, and it starts to build. And that's what we need right now more than anything. It's been one of the toughest years, for UCLA football that you and I have covered, man. We love this program and we love the people that listen to this show. And all we want is just for this fan base that has been through a lot of stuff just to come out and have a competitive team where they can just be excited each week to watch this football team go to work. And I think that's with Chesney, and let's put all of our efforts into Chesney. If we can land him, it's going to take a couple of years, but I think we have the recipe for success long-term with a guy like Bob Chesney. So that's my 2 cents on the coaching search. Let's make it happen, and let's get the UCLA fan base back fired up for everything going on.
Yes, sir. I love that, Thriller. And, we're going to keep an eye on Bob Chesney. Unbelievable, Thriller, how James Madison is in position to be in the college football playoff. And I think that run is propelling him to be so focused on this team, to his credit, to his values. I mean, you're seeing so many other stories of coaches kind of potentially taking other jobs while the season is ongoing. Chesney super focused on James Madison right now because he wants to take that Cinderella team to the playoff and see where it goes. And I think also, we've seen Virginia Tech land their coach. We've seen Oklahoma State now land their coach. The question now becomes, is Chesney going to pick Penn State, being a Pennsylvania guy, or is Penn State going to offer, or does he go with UCLA? And so you got to believe that perhaps his heart may be leaning Penn State because he's such a Northeast guy. A game like Saturday with the fans coming out and the fans showing out and the opportunity to potentially have a historic upset and the emotion and the pageantry and what it means to everybody in terms of this city, the Mecca of entertainment. If you can give the Mecca of entertainment another incredible storyline, there's nothing like it anywhere else in the country. Chesney will see that. He'll gravitate towards it. He'll understand it, and he'll want to come to UCLA. And so before we go, we got to pay the bills around here. Like we always say, Sleeper app, #1 sports app on the market today. Use that promo code UCLA LAFB, and you get $100 off a match bonus. You put in 100, you get 100 back. Now 100 becomes 200 to play all kinds of different scenarios, over-unders, all the lines that you want. You got real-time stats. You got live news feeds. You got real-time chat. You got the whole immersive entertainment experience. Use Sleeper, #1 sports app on the market today, and tell them the guys at LAFB sent you. Thriller, like we always say, and this week more than ever, we've been through hell and back this season, but we got one more game to strap up and strap on and be loud, be proud, be passionate, Bruins. And like we always say, 4's up forever, baby.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.